Voting Theory Class 5 Video 3. In this video I'm going to talk about one of the downsides of an ordinal voting system. In particular, I'm going to talk about this phenomenon called a donkey vote, or donkey voting. Okay, so let's move on straight to the definition. A donkey vote is a ballot cast in a ranked choice election, so that's an ordinal voting system, any ordinal voting system, where the voter is permitted or required to rank all the alternatives, and the voter ranks them based on the order in which they appear on the ballot. Okay, so this is the phenomenon that occurs where if you insist that your voters give you a complete ranking of all the alternatives, maybe they don't actually have a complete ranking in their mind. Like, it takes mental effort to come up with a complete ranking of all the alternatives, and especially if there's an election where there are many alternatives running, it's enough to ask people just to choose their favorite, like, let alone choosing a complete ranking. So what happens sometimes is if you insist that they give you a complete ranking, people just rank them based on how they appear on the actual ballot. Okay, so for example, if you go into an election and you're given something like this is your ballot, and you have to give me a complete ranking, well, maybe you know that Eve is your favorite, so you put Eve in the number one spot, but then you don't actually care about anyone else. You don't know anything about anyone else, and you don't know their policies or their positions on certain issues, but it's the law that you have to rank them all. So the easiest thing to do would just be to say something like this. Okay, like, you have to rank them, so you just do it in numerical order starting from the top, and this would be called a donkey vote. I have no idea why. That's just what it's called. This would be called a donkey vote. But this is obviously a very undesirable thing to happen. I mean, it means that because Alice, her name, like, I wrote these in alphabetical order, and because Alice begins with A, they are at the top of the ballot, so they get like an advantage. All the people who do donkey votes are gonna, like, give Alice a boost. And this is a non-trivial phenomenon. It's not just like it can be ignored. This phenomenon of people doing donkey votes actually influences the outcome of the election, right? I mean, most elections that use a ranked preference voting system, an ordinal voting system, they have measures to try and take this into account. Like, for one thing, they do not, in general, list the alternatives in alphabetical order, because when people used to do this, there are like cases of parties choosing deliberately candidates with names that appear earlier in the alphabet, just so they would be higher on the ballot, just so they would be able to take advantage of all this donkey voting that would happen. So in general, the alternatives are ranked in some sort of random order, and no one knows the order, so the parties can't sort of plan to take advantage of the donkey votes. But donkey voting is something that happens in the real world, and it's something which you should be aware of. It's a big downside of this preferential voting systems, of ordinal voting systems. And it's all because asking people to give a complete ranking of all of their preferences, of the alternatives, that's a lot to ask people. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to vote in the first place. It's hard enough to get people to vote just for their favorite, but asking them to give you a complete ranking from 1 to however many there are, that's a lot to ask, and it's possibly too much to ask. Okay, well, that's donkey voting, and that's the end of this video.